Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xavier on this deep dive into the unknown.
What that person believed in initially on Earth would happen to them. So if they believe they're going to hell, and if they think there is that one, they might actually experience that for a little bit first.
Yeah.
But it shifts. It changes. So we have to start it like that now.
We
Sorry.
do. No, we can't.
I just
Oh, this is going to be bad. Well, we're going to start with giggles. Why not? No. This week is not a very giggly topic. It's actually a really tricky topic and topic of discussion. So if you're looking for answers, you may find some in what we're talking about, but I don't think we're going to give any answers to what happens when you die. Get that a lot. I've got that recently at my local cafe. How about that?
Really?
Who are all listeners too, so shout out. Yeah, so it's very interesting topic about what happens when you die. And this is often loaded with because I've been told, or because I'm scared about, or because someone's just passed. So it's a tough topic because it's always loaded with a lot of really heavy emotion.
Oh, it's got all these goosebumps.
So I think we can tread a little bit carefully, but also looking at it as to what we've seen in our work, and also what we know, which is
I think we know.
not a lot.
Yeah. I always share what I've been shown or told in my head or learned from others, and they collaborate. So I feel when I explain it to my clients, I feel pretty confident that that's what it's like when you cross over, because I'm a medium myself, and I've been shown lots of images and had explanations, and then it collaborates with what I've learned from other mediums and things. So I feel like I have a well-rounded knowledge of what happens, but I definitely believe. And when we decided to do an episode on this topic, I said to you, like, maybe all of us are only shown or taught what we're ready to understand, that our little minds could even fathom. So there could be more that unravels in the future, or we learn when we die ourselves or go home, or leave this body, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to say, there's a saying that's come out now. It's a trend to not offend people because I don't like the word die.
Okay.
People say unalived.
Wow.
Yeah,
that sounds so healthy.
That's the only time I'm going to say that. Just saying, it's
how healthy.
No.
How
anyway.
healthy. Don't mention death and it can't get you.
Oh my goodness. Anyway,
it's like a tax accountant saying, okay, we no longer talk about tax. We talk about government contributions. Same thing. Sorry, everyone.
If you want to know what I'm talking about, search it in TikTok and you'll hear about it. Lordy.
How to dress up a pig with makeup. Yeah.
you don't die anyway, in my opinion. You go home, or you change your suit of clothes, or your soul never dies. It's just a physical body anyway. Yeah. So maybe we don't know everything. So we just when we go home, we might learn all the rest and fill in all the blanks, and then we come back and forget what it was. So, yeah.
I'd love to start with you and what you've been shown. And I really should, because we talk to our listeners all the time. I always forget. People tune in and go, who the hell are these people? What experience are they talking from? I'm a hypnotherapist and take people through regression therapy. So there's a lot of death that comes out in that regression therapy. And Optimistic Xavier is a psychic. So it's coming from a psychic perspective, and me coming from stories that have come across me and that I've experienced myself through meditation and through hypnosis. So you can take that and leave it too.
I didn't know you'd experienced that through hypnosis with clients, so that's really cool. I'm
absolutely
looking more about that.
yeah, very important part of the process a lot of the time. So Opti, what is your psychic view on what happens when you die?
Hey, so I get asked this a lot, of course, by clients, because I have clients that come to me purely for mediumship. So they've often
Yes.
lost someone recently. And I really like, and the biggest question is, or the most common statement I would hear, which you would have heard too, is, I just want to know if they're okay.
Yep.
And yeah, for anyone listening, I just want to first straight away just say they're always okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're always, no, they're more than okay. They're more okay than you'll ever be on this earth. So there's nothing to worry about there. So and everything I'm saying, of course, is like we said before, from what I've been shown. So I'm not saying it's a be all and end all. Let's just talk about it as a discussion.
Great.
So, and I get like movie references when I'm explaining things. Like when I get shown things, they show me like a movie, so it makes sense to me. And the closest example I've been shown is a scene from a movie of when you're analyzing your life. I'll start from the start first. I'm skipping forward a little bit.
That's right.
What it's been explained to me as a download, channeling, is when someone crosses over, often they don't feel the actual experience of death. They've already like left their body and kind of like hovering around it or over it. So they're not always feeling, especially if it's a traumatic or a big horrible way to go, or it's painful or something. They don't want to feel that, so they just choose to opt out. So they're not actually physically, the body's reacting, but they're not feeling it as a soul. Like it's just like I don't know, how would you explain it? Like nerves moving. Like, sometimes this sounds gross, but I've definitely grown up with a bit of a country upbringing with my kids as well. Chop a snake's head off, and don't do that. Get a snake catcher. But this happens sometimes, and then the snake will still keep moving, right? So it's like it's still, there's an energy there on nerves moving and all that kind of stuff. Yep. Even though the soul's clearly left the body.
So like the body's subconsciously reacting to it, but consciously it's outside, either watching or already gone.
Yeah. It might not happen every time, but I've been shown that happens quite a lot.
Is that through really traumatic deaths or any death?
I've seen painful ones, traumatic ones, and even so my own grandmother, who passed recently, I got shown that once she was put on morphine, which wasn't for very long, as soon as she was put on morphine, she was out.
Wow.
Yeah, she was just hanging around, like hovering around her body. So I thought that was really lovely. So she's like a help to kind of relax and separate from the physical, which is nice. So yeah, so it might happen in those kind of instances too. If that happened for her, then maybe that happens for lots of people. I don't know.
While we're on this topic, because I don't want to go backwards and forwards, that is just so interesting, because through hypnosis and hypnotherapy, through regression, particularly when we go through, we don't go through someone's current life death because they're alive and in front of us. What an idiot.
Good, but they don't want to know that.
But if a past life comes up in regression therapy, we often go through the death scene. It's either integral to the trauma that they have held an emotion to, or it completes a picture, or it ties a bow to the whole event. Either way, it's often a really important thing to go through. Sometimes they don't go through it because it's not important. Because it comes from, it's guided from, I say that the subconscious, that's a very hypnotherapist thing to say. It's from the higher self, right? The subconscious is like
I say both as well.
And the higher self is really the one that's kind of guiding the sessions. So the higher self in this point will bring through what needs to come through. And if the death doesn't matter, it's like, oh, I'm not getting anything. But often, 90% of the time, the person will experience going through the death, and experience it like, not so much like it's a memory, but more like a very, very vivid dream where you can feel and see things, right? So it can be a little bit worrying. And people can, your heart gets going and that sort of stuff. You're really actually feeling it. That's an important part, because that's where the emotion is attached. So if you can feel it and work through it, you're actually releasing that emotion. So then as we go over it again, when there's no emotion left in it, that's how I know that it's clear. I'm not psychic, just clearing something for someone. I actually have to get them to go through it until they go, yep, this happened and I died. And
they could disassociate.
It's just out of 10, how do you feel talking about it? They're like 1 or 2. I'm just talking. Yeah. Well, so at the time they might feel it, And 90% of the, maybe a little less, maybe 80% of the deaths, particularly when they're traumatic, at the time of death and just before the time of death, they separate from the body and they talk about it as if they're hovering over it and watching it.
Well, how cool is that?
That is bizarre that you've mentioned that same thing, because we're not from the same school at all. And
not on this life anyway.
Well, yeah. Not on this planet.
Sorry, not in this life, on this planet. Yeah.
So from this, and these are accounts from people that have a very religious background, that don't even believe in past lives. This is from people that are real woo-woo and go to market stalls and love crystals. And these are people that are atheists and don't believe in anything, which is believing in something, but whatever. So this is people from all around experiencing that same thing when they go through that in hypnosis, where they go through that feeling of death, that they'll separate from that each time. And I don't lead it. I ask what's happening and they tell me, and I say, now what's happening there? Every time it's like, I don't know. I feel really light. What do you mean? I don't know. I just feel really light. What can you see? I can see myself, blah, blah, blah. It's like, are you yourself or can you see yourself? No, I'm above myself now, So I don't lead it all because I want to know if it's all, and it's a absolutely common theme in really, really traumatic deaths, that they will separate from themselves either in the hospital bed or out in the battlefield or, during a suicide, so many different times where they have that separation of I guess consciousness. They're not consciously in the body, they're now consciously aware of it from
so they're still experiencing it, but maybe they don't need to, for their lessons or whatever, like they don't need to physically feel it, so they can detach, but others might have to. We love interviewing experts from different fields about all things outside the apparent physical realm. And
the one constant is these phenomena are transmitted through energy.
So we sought out and teamed up with Subtle Energy Science
to bring you, our listeners,
energetic encoded technology you can use on your phone, laptop, computer, or tablet,
turning your device into a powerful personal quantum energy tool. Now, we're not the creators, or are we qualified enough to explain it at all, but there is a mind-blowing number of scientific studies available on their website.
We get to try their range ourselves so we can give an honest review. And until the end of April, we've got 20% off The Mystic with promo code MATP-861.
And I love using The Mystic. I love it more than anything else. And I notice it really helps if you want to open up your heart or tune in to a deeper awareness.
Now back to the show.
My question. So that was my question. Yeah. What do you think the purpose is? And maybe you can channel this. God, I love putting you on the spot. I've got a psychic, everyone. I can just plug her in.
We're both on my feet on the floor now.
Yes, ground yourself. What is the purpose of separating, that separation at death, of being able to maybe see it or be apart from it and not actually experience the trauma of death?
What is just coming to me is why the other way is why you would need to experience it, right?
Okay.
That's just how it's getting worded.
Okay. Yeah.
So there could be a multitude of reasons. Okay. One of them could be, say, for example, like we don't get punished. We don't come back to get punished for something we've done before. It's because we're just curious and want to experience it from. We always choose our lives, right? What I my understanding. So we choose to go through something, and that would trigger some people listening to this, because that brings up a whole bunch of topics, but we can go in, maybe. It could be part of this podcast. So just say, for example, you stabbed somebody in a past life, in another life, and then this time you chose to understand what that feels like to experience for yourself to die that way. Not as a punishment, like I said, but to just get a whole nother perspective and understand what that is that you did to the other person and what they went through, so you can experience it yourself and heal through it. So maybe you need to feel that whole experience and what it's like, the slow process or whatever it was, however it happened. You just meant to feel it, and you want to feel it in the physical body rather than detaching. You just need that experience. That feels like that is the main reason of why you would need to stay in the body in some instances. and not like you don't need to. It's not part of your lesson. Like just like with every other lesson in our life, the death is part of your lesson, whether you're meant to be in it or out of it, witness it or be in it. I know when I taught my husband Daniel to heal and clear his own past lives and then be able to do it for other people, he experienced his death as a kamikaze pilot, a Japanese kamikaze pilot. And it was this first one he ever saw for himself. And it was very intense and he was feeling all the feelings and crying. And he was like short of breath and shaking and experiencing the whole thing as he was crashing into a ship. I think it was a ship or a raised submarine at the time.
Okay.
He was crashing into it. He felt all the feels and he released it all and went through that himself. And I just sort of held him and supported him as that was happening. But he felt it. Like, I think as soon as it happened, that was it, because it was really instant. Like it wasn't like a long-term pain. It was just like, but he felt all the lead up to it and then he was out.
Yeah.
So it depends on how quickly you die maybe as well. So yeah, for some people, I think they're supposed to go through it and feel the intensity and energy. Just part of their story.
It's it's an interesting shift that you've put it back on. It's not a question of why would you separate. It's like, why wouldn't you? It's so traumatic. It's about why would you choose the anomaly of actually feeling it?
I think because most do separate. So it's like, why would you choose not to? Then?
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Smaller percentage. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they rephrased it.
So I don't do anything to people that I wouldn't have done to me. So I've had past life regression myself, and I explored a lot of past life regression when past lives first started coming through in my work as a hypnotherapist. So I never wanted to even be a past life regression therapist, so I didn't ever know how I felt about it. But it just happened because I didn't guide the sessions that would happen in sessions. So I went and got a past life regression because I thought, is it bullshit? Like, do they actually feel it? Like, what is being released here? Is it traumatic? Like, how bad is this? And I remember having a past life experience where I went to go through the death. And this was, I think it was when I was a Macedonian fighter. I stuffed up and we got stuck. I think that came out in an episode. And I remember I was so annoyed because they were shooting us with longbows and they wouldn't come and fight, even though we we're definitely going to lose. So they took the glory out of the death in the fight. And I remember being separated before I died. Like the arrows were in the air. And it's not like it would have been traumatic. It didn't matter. So
yeah, you didn't need to.
I don't know. I never felt that. There was another one where I was impaled. So, and we were like a war party attacking another one. I don't know why these two war ones came up, but whatever. Hasn't always been that. I've been a baker, which was really boring, and I was something else, a bank, someone that was really boring as well. It's not all warriors.
They're not always that exciting.
They're not always exciting, but important, very important lessons. And I was impaled and I felt it and I could feel it. And it was really weird because I could feel, it's not like it was the pain. I knew it was pain that I was experiencing, but I wasn't actually feeling the pain, which is probably a good thing. But it was weird because it really affected my breathing and how my heart was pumping. And it was because of where the spear had gone through. So it punctured a lung. So I felt like on my left side, like it was weird. I'm like, oh, wow, I can feel it. So I was actually in that one. And I can't remember why that was important. It might not have been, but it was interesting where you got the two different experiences of being with the death or without. And it reminded me of a client that I had that was quite suicidal. And she was a male in this past life, really suicidal. The war broke out, World War I broke out. And there was a lot of talk about it beforehand. And then she finally went over. So she was American. So it was towards the end of the war. And there wasn't much happening at the war. And she, or he in this case, found that it didn't take away how he was feeling and what was going on. He was really, really sad. And he ended up suiciding at the field. But she even described how he was able to do it with a rifle, which was very interesting. And she had no experience with guns or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was really traumatic. Oh, you can imagine just the sadness and then the fear and everything else that was going with it and the disappointment. And it was really horrible thing for her to have to go through. But from that of holding the rifle, she was then outside the body, and the whole thing was witnessed outside the body, and she could see people around and that sort of thing. So she still felt all of that she needed to feel, but it wasn't through that suicide that she felt it.
Yeah. So you could detach, and then not, so it's not affecting you too much physically. So that's a good explanation for people who might be interested in going through a past life one way or the other, that knowing that you don't have to physically feel it for you. But often, like, this is in relation to past lives from our experience, but I'll go back to, I guess, unless you want to add anything else, to what I've been shown happens when you, as a medium, like what I've been shown by people that have crossed over when people are connecting with their loved ones.
Yep.
And what they've explained to me on multiple occasions to explain to the person in the room so they understand what it's like, is that they first just feel instantly like really free. Because imagine that part of their soul is in this heavy, dense body on the ground, like when they're used to just being free and flying around or whatever it is. So it's very freeing, no pain, everything's just gone. They're just like ecstatic, basically. They're just like feeling amazing. They would often be greeted. Now, some have shown me they'd be greeted by maybe guardian angels or loved ones that they expect. So a lot of it seems to be what that person believed in initially on earth would happen to them is what they would first see and experience. Because they're still kind of halfway connected to their physical, like their knowledge on earth and their all-knowing higher self that knows all the rest of the details. So in that transition, they would first see. So if they believe they're going to hell, and if they think there isn't one, they might actually experience that for a little bit first. But it shifts. And at a time doesn't really matter on the other side. So how fast that happens, I'm not actually sure. It seems like the way it was described to me is really quick. Like it might seem like kind of like when I channel and I get like a download of information. It's like a whole lot of information just happens at once, but it was only in 2 seconds and I could explain a 10-minute story. So it's something like that. It feels like it changes. So I haven't had it described ever as I see a light and they go towards it. Like no one's explained it like that, which is funny to me. So I find that really, I just thought about that then. It's like no one's actually said, I saw there was light and I went towards it and blah, blah, blah. There maybe was light, but they haven't said that they got pulled to a light. Like they've never said that. They just read it. It's just like, it's just all in the same space, but it's a different, brighter, lighter vibration. It's all in the
I have a comment to that then.
Yes, good.
So this is where near-death experiences come in, right? So a lot of the near-death experiences, they talk about a light and going towards that light. And then maybe some other experiences that happened and stuff, and then they came back. So for people that have come back from the edge, perhaps the only way they can describe what they experienced, like you have someone that does a very intense dimethyltryptamine trip, and they go on this journey and they come back and you're like, what happened? They're like, it's just like they can't even explain, and they start explaining it with shapes and things, and they're like, damn, that doesn't explain what I experienced. They can't bring it back and they can't express what it is. Maybe it's a case of the closest thing you can take back with you was like that there was a light and I was going towards it, and as I got closer, I felt more free or whatever. Maybe that's a way to just to explain what they experienced, but you're back here now, so it's hard to bring whatever that experience is back. So maybe that's the closest thing to describe for human.
That makes sense.
What that's perhaps.
Well, what I'm just being shown is that's like they're in between the two levels, the two dimensions of the higher vibration and the dense vibration that we're in. So they're experiencing like the tunnel, like the doorway in between. Maybe when you're actually gone, instead of the ones that tell the story and come back to tell the story, they've actually already there. They're just instantly there. So maybe that's they didn't have to go through some passage and see a light and climb their way and just make a decision whether they're going there or going home. Like there was none of that. So
And we're trying to explain it under the context of time and space.
Yeah,
And the other
exactly.
dimension doesn't necessarily have
And
time
if
and
you've
space.
heard lots of stories about seeing a light
Correct.
with a tunnel, then you're most likely going to see it that way.
All
The
that
ones I've
together.
spoken to haven't told me that way. So they're surrounded by loved ones usually, or they're in like, you know, however you imagine. If you feel like you'd see pearly gates and Jesus is going to be there and God's going to judge you and ask you questions before you walk through, then you might see it. But then reality, well, whatever you call
Another
it,
form of reality.
another form of reality kicks in and it shifts to whatever the heck it really is. I don't really know. They just tell us, I just get here all about just this beautiful healing process and they feel really good. I've been shown when it's been a really traumatic death, accident, especially suicide, they go to, and this was confirmed to me in a Dolores Cannon book. She called it the same thing for her clients that went through her regression therapy, whatever, QHHT, whatever it is. It described it as they go to a resting place. And that's how I've had it described to me. A resting place where they might just stay there and chill and heal for a lot longer before they even assess their lives. And that's like the next step is assessing their life and seeing what they learned and everything. So they just go to this resting place to just heal. And they might be a while till they decide to come back in another body because they just need to chill a bit longer.
Yeah.
It's like they're being cuddled with love. I just see it in my head as like this beautiful room of clouds or something really comfortable and healing and lots of light and lots of nurturing and lots of angels around or something like that helping you. So something like that.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready for that, whether it's straight away or after they've been in the resting place, what the movie reference I was talking about, I think it's called Mission Impossible, where these clear screens kind of come down and they're watching their life on these screens. And they can like move them along, fast forward, zoom in, you know how you
Minority Report.
Minority Report, not Mission Impossible.
Right.
Same Tom Cruise.
Same guy, same actor.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Same little man. So yeah, that's it. Minority Report. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're assessing, but it might not be screens. That's just how they explain it to me, so I can get it, like, make sense in my little brain as much as possible.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so you're assessing your life because you're here, it's a school. You're learning, you're training, you want to experience as much as you can, and it's like a class that you've chosen. And Earth has been described to me as like the university of planets. Because when you come here, you have free will, and you usually, unless there's little sneaky bits when kids bring up these things and remember past lives, but we forget why we came. And that's what makes it so damn hard, because we're supposed to learn and figure out what it was without any clues. It's like getting a jigsaw with no pictures, like it's all the same color or something, and you got to, it'll evolve as you put the pieces together more. Like so confusing. It's so hard. There's other planets apparently with where you don't have free will or you remember everything, and that's like kinder. Like, what's the point? How hard is that? If you remember why you came here, you know exactly what you need to do, and you're going to follow your path. And easy, boring. Like this, Earth is like hardcore.
So if you're listening to this, you're at a difficult university. Congratulations, and
you're getting there. If you fail,
down, bum up.
Assess your life and go, okay. So you're sort of, looking at the screens, zooming in. You know everything. So you think about, when your parent has died, they know the time you jumped out the window, went to that party. They know everything. They know when you've really lost your virginity. They know all that stuff, but there's no judgment. Like it's just pure love because they're back formed with the rest of their higher self.
Okay. And what you think matters here may not necessarily matter as much there. And what you think doesn't matter down here maybe is what you're trying to do while you're here.
They're not
how you're doing things, not the what you're doing.
Yeah, they're not the same personality as they were down here. Now, off a little bit, when they come through a medium, like you might go to an event or see someone in person like me, and the medium is explaining to you that parts of the personality will come through purely for your entertainment or confirmation that it's them.
Okay.
Share things, but they're actually a combination of, could be 100 other lives or more. So they know all the knowledge, but they're coming through and explaining things and dropping hints and giving you clues and presenting themselves in clothes that will make sense to you because that's the life you want to resonate with. Right. But when they're back there, they've combined with all the knowledge and they've gone, it's like, and I've explained before that your higher self is the rest of your soul. A slither of your soul goes in your body and maybe in other bodies because it couldn't all fit at once. You're trying to learn 100 things at one time. And then it's like when you go back, you're connecting with all the rest of your knowledge, is how I've been shown, which is so cool. So yeah, then you're assessing and going, okay, that's right. Now I remember, that's why I came to Earth. I wanted to learn this. And I know these soulmates that have been with me before helped me with this part. Oh my God, that one came and I totally ignored them. I wasn't supposed to fob them off. They were supposed to help me with this, and I totally went that way. Like, all right. So I want to learn that bit again because I kind of stuffed up there. How about I'm going to try that again next time, but in a different way. And that person's going to like smack me across the face to get me to pay attention this time, maybe literally, so I don't miss out on that point. Like maybe you could be a bit more obvious next time and like, okay, so you're playing your characters in a play kind of thing, or different roles in this school. And yeah, you might have a similar life. You might come back to the same family. You could, which happens quite a lot. Yeah, you could just swap roles. Maybe you decide to come back as the mother instead of the son next time or something, and swap it around to see the dynamic, because you gave your mum a hard time and you're like, oh, I want to experience that from the other side to see, was it really that hard? Like, so you're just deciding. And then because I'm getting really passionate about this, because everyone's just like a slither. Like, so some of your soulmates may be down there still living on Earth doing their thing, but you're still connecting with their higher self. And maybe another part of the same soul decides to come back with you when you're ready.
Oh, okay.
To role play and switch roles and change other things, or try the same kind of dynamic, just in a different era or whatever next time.
Which sounds like, so it can be more complicated than you think. I die and then I wear a white robe and float around and have meetings about how I'm going to come back again. Even that is probably a little bit too simple of
maybe
potentially what happens when you could cross over. Or
you could also consult, like we've sort of experienced that before in our own past life stuff, is that you might go consult some elders of some kind that they've been back so many times, they're done and they're finished, and now they're like the wise ones or something, and you might get some advice from them, or what does the planet need right now? Maybe way bigger than your own little lessons. Like, what do I need to come back for? Why do so many people around you during COVID and big times in history during wars and things like that? Like, what do they need to experience those things? Why would they choose to come back at that time?
Yeah.
So
yes,
planetary healing, and there's bigger things involved besides just your little lessons, but you throw some of that stuff in there as well. In the meantime.
Yep.
And so I've also been shown that maybe the people in the resting place that had a big traumatic life and or death, it might just not be the way they died. It might just be the whole life of how traumatic, lots of abuse or something like that. If they need to heal a bit longer, the next time they come back, maybe more of what I call, if with affection, floaters, like come back as more of a floaty life, where they're here, they're cruising around. We all know people like that. And so
not much affects them.
Yeah,
they land on
they
their
might
feet.
not do big things.
Yeah,
might just, be the really nice lady working at Coles, and she doesn't change people's lives but smiles at everybody, or maybe she doesn't. Like they just do their thing and they don't make a massive impact on the planet in any way. Like, not everybody's supposed to do that, but some of those people who just float through life and don't do much, maybe it's because they had a really tough life last time and they've got to have an easier cruisy one this time. And that's just the thing. Not everyone has to change the world when they come here. Like, it's not their story this time. Maybe they'll do it next time. They just taught me to be a bit more compassionate and tolerant to all different kinds of people. So I really liked learning that.
Yeah, that's it's a good way of looking at it, when you look at life as being not just what's happening here, but maybe what's happening behind the scenes. It helps you with the context of what's happening here, I guess, on the stage, if you want to look at it in that sense. I want to mention as well, for those that are maybe going through a traumatic life now, or also for those, particularly when we're talking about things like suicide, and talking about rest on the other side, and coming out and seeing that there's, bigger pictures here, that, like, it's really important not to try and go things alone while you're here as well, because maybe part of the lesson is to work through that.
Yes.
As traumatic as it is. And there are things like Crisis Line and Lifeline, or whatever country you're in, there's those 24-hour support lines to call. It's not unspiritual to call those, because part of the working out is being a human and being a person, to be able to work through it and having the courage to do it. Part of that is, we need each other to get through. So as much as, we've been shown, you get to the other side and it's like, oh, what was I so worried about? At the same time, we're here for a reason, to be able to work through stuff and help each other. So it's important to be able to access help wherever you can, particularly when you're touched by trauma, I think, here now as well. And it's very brave, I think, of you as a soul and as a person to work through that trauma, as hard as it is.
That's right.
Very brave to be able to face that. And you wouldn't be doing that if you weren't a very powerful, brave person. You wouldn't be going through that, I don't think.
That's right. And in saying that, like, some people's, what's trauma for one person, two people could go through the same trauma and it's going to affect one person mentally way more than the other one. And it doesn't mean that the trauma is any less like, it's up to the person, their perspective, and maybe like so many other things they've already been through and things like that. So
different path.
Yeah, exactly. And so talking about that, what I wanted to share, which is because I've had a lot of people come through that have suicided, right? And again, we'll use that percentage of, I would say 90% of the ones I've chatted with, probably only about 25 suicides, I think I've experienced in my life and tuned in with the people over my time. So something like that. I reckon 90% of them, and what I've been showing is that's normally not, so we have when we're planning our life, part of that is planning how you cross over at the end.
Okay.
So that is because it might be part of your lessons again, and knowing when you forget that when you come here. 90% of the time, suicide wasn't in the plan.
No.
Right. So, and I say 90% because I have had times when I had to explain it to the family member that actually, and it's actually helped them. It wasn't just to make them feel better. It's because I got shown and it's told to explain it to them that it actually was part of the plan, because it was actually not just for themselves, it was for all the people around them in their life to learn and grow, like they made a contract. So that's hard to explain and for a family to understand. It's not as common, but sometimes it is meant to happen that way for certain reasons in the lessons and all that kind of stuff. And it's a ripple effect to certain people at that time. So everyone's different. And I'm going all red on my neck because this is such a passionate topic to explain about. And yeah, when I'm channeling, sometimes I just go red. So for those watching, I'm not embarrassed.
For anyone watching, her neck is, I like to call that channeled red.
Channeled red. It's matching my pink top.
Yeah, pink top and channeled red.
My hair
it always happens
like that. Yeah.
No, it's fine. Embrace it.
Yeah. So so most of the time it's not part of the plan.
No.
So it's not like they failed their lessons. It just means, like I was saying with that example before,
missed opportunity.
Yes, exactly. Missed opportunity. Like they might have, like, say there was and it's not just for suicide even. It can even be if they were murdered or something like that happened. It's kind of like, oh, I didn't get out of the relationship fast enough. Like I should have listened to this person, that person, or I could have worked on myself at this point, but then I didn't work on my self-love and I didn't all this kind of stuff could have come up. And then they've thought, I might come back and try that again and bring in more help next time, because they might have suicided or they might have died in a different way, like when that wasn't to plan. So they want to come back and experience it again, even though you think, oh, do you want to go through that again? Soul's choice is that they want to try again to see if they can do better next time, or do it in a different way, or help somebody else that they wish they could have helped, try to be a better human or something like that. So yeah, you might come back and try it again in a different way to see if you can do better next time. And not do better as in you're a bad person or you failed at life or whatever because you did suicide and didn't make it. It's not like that. It's just
opportunity to
hard to explain it without sounding like we don't care, like, because it's just fascinating to me. So that part of my brain battles with a compassionate, oh my God, you poor thing, that sucks. So the other side's like,
both exist.
Oh, that's so interesting. I wonder why they chose to go through that. So I don't mean to sound callous or like not empathetic, because I am. But when you know so much, I guess it's just you're looking at
a different perspective of looking at it. And I think a big challenge people have is if you know, if you know that when you die, and it is like, you know, the sages talk about it. I love some of the poetry in the old sages.
Oh, beautiful.
You know, meditation, Michael always comes into
I
this,
love
doesn't
it.
he?
I love
But they
it.
talk about death as being like the feeling of taking off a tight shoe. That's the feeling that
Maybe a heavy clog.
yeah, like a tight shoe. When you take that tight shoe off, it's
Wow.
just like this, ah, cool.
Beautiful
You know,
analogy.
that if, you know, the challenge is people think, well, if you think it's okay if you just die and maybe you come back a few times or whatever, then you're not gonna take life more seriously. And I think this is the bit where we show the
Yeah.
other side of it. That can exist, that there's obviously bigger things, but we're also here for a reason.
Yeah.
And what I like to tell people as well is like, okay, maybe you're not the person that you've grown up thinking you are. Maybe you are a much different being than that,
Mhm.
having the experience of Xavier or experience of Michael. But but Michael Hearn only comes around once ever.
Mm.
There'll only ever be
Same
one
person. Yeah,
me.
that's
There'll
right.
only ever be one you.
Mhm.
And that opportunity with everything that happened from the birth process to, okay, let's say if there is a planning process before you're even born, right?
Yeah, if it's
But
true.
from that planning process to the birth process to
Mm.
everything growing up and being alive, staying alive. It's so hard to stay alive as well.
Drums
And
in my head.
being well and yeah. But all of those things to get to the point where you are, there is just so much involved and so much investment
Mm.
into this lesson
Mhm.
that is so unique and special,
Yeah.
even though it is something that will too pass, that will go as
Exactly.
well.
It's important and
But
it's
it
like,
can come and go, but it's also so
yeah.
precious. And that's what makes it precious as well, is
Yeah.
because anything that's born will die.
Mhm.
Anything that's born will die. So the part of you that wasn't born, you know, the body was born, the
Yeah.
personality was created, all of that's temporary.
Yeah.
That part never dies, perhaps. But, you know, the part that does die, well, that's so precious because it was born and it'll die. So we need to treat it like it's very precious. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the compassion comes, even when understanding death at a different rate. That doesn't mean you don't grieve.
That's
Because you
right.
know what? You miss your Granny Smith. You
Oh
wish
my
she was
gosh, I
there
miss
next to
Granny
you.
Smith apple. I've got an apple tattooed on my arm
Yeah.
before she died.
So
And
why would a
even though
psychic
I know
grieve?
how it all works, I still bawled my eyes
What?
out, even though
Well,
I know
yeah.
she was 92.
Why would a psychic medium grieve still? And it's because
Exactly.
compassion is
Still human.
probably one of our strongest tools for
Mm.
learning. Because if we didn't all have an innate compassion,
Mm.
then there'd be nothing to learn because it'd all just be like born,
Yeah,
live, get, die, born, live, get,
that's
die.
right.
There's no learning because it's just who cares. So I think that's good to bring up, that it is
Yeah,
actually really important. And when we talk about things like suicide as well, it is really important because life is just so precious.
that's
And
right.
what
We
you've
chose the
done or
body that
what's
we
happened, what you've
Yeah,
done or what's happened doesn't matter, but
yes.
you do. You
Yes,
matter. That's the
exactly.
precious bit. And so it's about perspective. And that's why we need people around us to help, because it
Mhm.
just helps get you out of the perspective of you are the body, you are the one being abused, or you are the one that abused and you feel guilt. And it's about
Mhm.
bringing that perspective out and going, okay, bigger picture here. Okay, so what
Mhm.
can you learn from that? And this is a precious life. So life can be precious as
Exactly.
well as being temporary.
So I don't yeah, that's why exactly so beautifully put, and that's exactly why I have to have this balance, I suppose. Like on one hand, yeah, completely understand loss and but there's the business side of me, I suppose, the side of me that's got to keep her shit together to help clients and not always fall in a heap. Like I still cry sometimes when all because of all the love when I'm
I
channeling.
struggle. Yeah, I
Like, yeah,
struggle.
I cry with
Yeah.
my clients. At the same time, funerals are actually my favorite thing to go to now.
Yeah.
Sounds really weird, but it's
Yeah.
because, man, if everybody, and I've said this so many times, if everyone could see what I see at a funeral, nobody would be afraid to die.
Yeah.
Nobody, because there's so much love in the room. You think about, where people tell you, just think about your loved one and they're there. Now imagine, which is true, you're never interrupting them. So imagine in a funeral when the room is full of people that love them and care about them, thinking about them. They can't not be there. It's like they're being pulled into the space. They couldn't leave if they wanted to. Like, there's so much love there. So they're always at their own funeral.
Yeah.
They don't care, though. I just want to add, they don't care if you didn't get the colored flowers they like. They don't care if you forgot what their favorite song is. It's all for you.
Yeah, okay.
They like, I've been shown that so many times. I have seen someone waltzing. It was a great uncle of mine waltzing down the aisle when his favorite song was played, and I see the person in spirit maybe standing up the front of the podium, supporting there, or standing next to someone. And what's gorgeous is nobody else would notice it, but I might see them standing next to the person speaking. And then as they're speaking, I see them move their shoulder or something because they got like a tingle.
Ooh.
And I can see they've got their hand on their shoulder. And I'm like, oh, like,
so
it's so cool.
So when people, this is an interesting question, and we're moving through this.
I know. I'm just going to explain it for people.
We're moving through this death process. So
yeah,
when you die, in your experience, do you think everyone or most people go to their funeral?
Yes, they don't miss it. Like I said, they can't miss it. Even if they only had like 5 people there, that's still a lot of people like pulling in their energy.
What does that mean, pulling in their energy?
Because they're thinking of them usually at the funeral because they're grieving, not always just to be polite. Like sometimes
with a lot of emotion.
Like you should. There's some kind of emotion there.
Yeah.
Off of them, and they want to say good riddance. There's a lot of love. They're bringing their energy because they're thinking about them. So they're bringing their energy, and they can't not be there. Or they're a bit curious to see how their funeral turned out and stuff like that. So they're there in the space, and they're just there. So when I go to funerals, I see the spirit. It might not be the whole time. I don't see them walking around the room. I just see flashes.
Yeah.
Here and there, or hear something that they said. Another time we were out in the rain watching the cast go into the hearse, is it what's called? Yeah. And then everyone's getting rained on, and I heard him say, "Get out of the rain. What are you still standing out here for?"
Oh, wow.
That was
You're looking for the person. Wow, that's amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I would never approach anyone at the funeral and say, "Oh, blah blah blah." You're like, I wouldn't tell them it. If they know what I do and they ever come and ask me, I will. Sometimes I've taken notes straight after in my notes folder in case I've been asked later. I'm going to get people inviting me to their funerals now.
That's right.
That'd be great. Yeah. I would never advertise. I don't want to have like this higher fee. That sounds so tacky, but I can do that. It sounds like really bad.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting looking at
I'd love to do that.
The value of a psychic, because a lot of people ask me, because they know I'm a fairly rational person and I've got a podcast with a psychic, but they also know I'm quite authentic.
My friends of Michael,
I wouldn't.
What is she doing with him?
No, I wouldn't do a podcast with a psychic if I thought that it was a rort, obviously. Well, not obviously. I'm just telling you this, and you take it by face value. But one of the things I've found is that, like, absolutely, through many things that have happened, I don't question it. It's up to everyone else to work out whether or not you're psychic or not. I don't care. Yeah. But with that, like the value of having a medium when a loved one has passed, I think a lot of it there is particularly with grieving, like there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of loss. And that grieving that loss, that it's just like it's something that you can't get back. That's the bit, that hopeless part of you that you know you can't get that back ever. Like it's gone for good from you. Yes. So that sadness and that loss and that grief, that doesn't go away, because it's a really important process of being. That's like the yin and the yang, the light and the shade of good times and bad times, or light and dark, or whatever it is. Like, it's really important to have that sadness and just be sad and grieving.
Yes.
I think the difference is whether or not you can sit with that grief and that sadness and sit with it for what it is, or if you're suffering from it.
Yeah.
And I think the suffering bit doesn't need to happen. The grieving and the sadness and the loss needs to happen. And those of you that do suffer from your grief know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Because there's a suffering there where you're just like, it's just this hopeless, horrible mess, you know. Sometimes it can take away the suffering from it, knowing that there's something bigger. It's like taking off a shoe. It's not that disappearing. And a lot of the old sages talk to this about like what death is. And they laugh and joke, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, because there's one I think it was Maharaji, and I think it was Ram Dass's guru. He's a funny little guy. And they'd say, don't want you to die. I don't want you to go. And he's laughing. He's like, go where? Where am I going?
Exactly.
Where is there to go? What are you talking about?
You don't go. It's like, it's not like up in space. It's like,
yeah, that's what he's laughing about. He's like,
you're still here.
go. Like when this body dies, when this body dies, I'm just as here as I was before. If anything, the going is when you're in the body.
That's right.
This is you going, and then you just it's not even going back. It's just you're always there.
In another dimension or something, like,
which is a very interesting. Some people, and there's very few people that I think transcend this existence of being a person. There's very few that do it. Because it's very hard. Because how do you do that with your mind? You've got to go outside your mind, but you need your mind to go outside your. Okay, so transcending is very difficult, but it's interesting listening and hearing from people that have transcended, where there's just this calm, peaceful stillness of just going, there is no, and people talk about, enlightenment, I want to be enlightened. It's like, if you become enlightened, like, you're not going to become enlightened. The one that wants to be enlightened, that person in the body dies. The real part of you is enlightened.
If you're wanting to be, that means you're not there, either.
Well, you won't get there because that part of you won't get there. That part of you is the thinking, but you're not that. You're more than that. So it's very interesting that to take away the suffering without taking away the importance of, it's sad, and I wish they were still around, and I'm still grieving, and they're important processes. So I think it's good looking at what happens when we die. And using the word death. I think if we take away the word death and call it unliving, it's almost like you're saying that death is such a horrible thing we can't use.
It's the opposite to what we're trying to explain today.
Like, death is not a horrible thing.
The physical body dies. Your soul is forever, and you would have heard that before. And like what you're saying with all that important, how we miss people. No matter how much you explain it to somebody about how they never leave you. Anytime you think of them, they're there.
Your heart still aches.
You get it. It's not the same as being there in the physical, being able to give them a hug and asking a question and them giving you an answer. Not everyone's shiny enough or connected enough to channel information. So we totally get that.
But even then, you're still here.
For me, I still miss my grandma.
That's the thing.
I can even talk to her, and I still miss her. So and that's a whole different level of knowing. Like, it's just different, but knowing that they're okay, that's the main thing. The same message I keep getting to tell the loved ones is that they forgive them everything, because there's nothing to forgive. They heard everything you wanted to say, because all you have to do is think it, and they hear it, whether they're in their deathbed or they're already crossed over. They hear everything. They know everything that you're thinking. So that's the biggest takeaway. Like, you don't have to, you didn't not get to say something to them before they passed. Cool. And I'm feeling some emotions of somebody listening right now, because feeling all the film. Empathic for future listeners. How trippy is that?
You're very talented.
It wasn't even my stuff. It's just I'm feeling somebody else's feels. They feel it all. You didn't miss out. Every occasion that you wish they were at, they are there. Acknowledge them. Set a place at the table for them. Light a candle for their birthday. Like, you don't have to miss anything. They don't miss any of your special occasions. And then they're part of their soul can come back into the family, or come back again into your life in some way or another. Maybe, doesn't matter.
And it won't be the same.
It won't be the same personality.
The life is very precious.
Maybe
but
little
it's still the real part of it.
Yeah. Like, sometimes there's a difference between actually. Sometimes people have talked about their child, like the grandparent might have passed, or the parent might have passed, and then their own child like says facts about them and they never met, or says the same thing as they did or something. Sometimes it can be the grandparent has come through as them, and there's little glimmers to help you know that. Other times they're visiting them as a spirit, and they're talking to them, and they're picking it up, and that's why they're saying those things. But it could be either. So that's very interesting as well. I love that.
So can I just quickly go on to ghosts? And
Because
I
we're nearly
recognize
out of
we are
time.
running out of time.
Yeah, there's other things I wanted to talk about too that I just thought of. I'm like, we don't.
Really quickly with ghosts.
Yes.
What I've seen in
Ooh.
through hypnosis and people having past lives and been stuck as ghosts. I kid you not. Oh,
Wow.
it's a strange world that
Yes,
I
I want
work
to
in.
hear about. Yeah.
And where I've experienced through hypnosis spirits or ghosts. When we say ghosts, so people disembodied spirits or whatever, ones that haven't gone home. The reality is that there's nowhere to go. There is home. They're already home. Part of their spirit is still cruising around going, what the hell? But the most of them still there, right? And it's about letting that spirit part of them go. Every single time it's because they're confused, because they've believed maybe a dogma or an understanding of what happens when you die or whatever.
They're still stuck there.
And they're stuck there. So they're hanging on to this life as much as possible because they don't want to go to hell, or they don't want to see someone that they, abused in.
Where's the angel coming down to
or,
explain it to them? Oh, they probably don't believe that that'll happen, so that's why it hasn't happened.
yeah. Or that might be part of the path. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's important to be ghosts sometimes. Who knows?
It's stuck.
But the more understanding you have before you pass, and to have people around you is really good, and to have people that love you, and to pray for people, maybe however you do it,
getting stuck. Is
however you do it, I think it makes a difference in the sense of the confusion
beautiful.
on the other side. So for people that do a lot of prayer, and people from the Christian faith or whatever, I believe prayer probably works really well. And being around them with prayer and that energy.
Nice.
So I think, it's that understanding, I think, and, the disembodied spirits and ghosts and things, they're not hanging around forever. They already are forever in a completely different form. And it's just about that kind of seeping back into that. That's what I've seen with hypnosis, and it sounds right.
Sounds good to me. Like, let's just go with that. But
who knows? Yeah.
There's so many people would, again, like, it's really a hard topic to prove anything, because
exactly
different
kinds of
therapists and then different psychics will channel or see or hear different information, and not all it's going to be the same. So it's like, that's why it's like hard to believe any of it, I guess, which makes sense. But again, like I said before, maybe they're just getting what they're ready for.
Correct.
So some of it will, like, so many of it I hear the same story. So I'm like, wow, that must be true. Because they've said it. But other times I hear totally different things, and they're like, oh no, it's definitely this way because that's what I got. Well, a bit egotistical there, but whatever. They might not be the same way of thinking that, hey, maybe you can't swear exactly. So
exactly.
We're playfully trying to explain it the best way that we know.
I didn't die and come back, I'm telling you. But even if I did, it would still be from my perspective. So it's not going to help you.
Exactly.
But you don't need to suffer, I think is the big point around what happens when people die. The end of the day, we don't know. And fear is when we're afraid of worst case scenario, but that's all in your imagination anyway. So just is what it is. Death is like, you can say death and die. It's okay. It's just as bad a word as birth. It's the same thing.
It's just part of the process.
Different part of the process.
Physical body anyway, regardless of saying birth or death. Like, it's just a physical body. The suit of clothes that we chose for this life.
The suit of clothes we chose.
You happy with yours? Does it need a bit of polishing, a dry clean? Like,
I definitely need a polish and a dry clean.
Stop complaining. Oh, and one other thing that we all have in common, that while we chose to come here before we die, what happens on the other side, is the one thing I've been shown we all have in common is to learn self-love and unconditional love for ourselves, to forgive yourself everything you think you've done wrong, all the mistakes you think you've made, because maybe they were meant to happen that way. Just love yourself completely. And then when you do cross over, you might feel a little bit more complete and well-rounded and not have to do the same shit again.
And I'd hate to sound biblical, but loving yourself is how you then love others. You can't fully love others until you forgive and love yourself. So, and it's a hard process. It's a hard process. Not for Donald Trump. He's got it. Definitely loves himself, but it is a hard process. But, what a beautiful thing that life is so precious because it's finite. So it's something to celebrate that preciousness. we don't need to go on further. Thank you.
That's it. Awesome.
For listening.
If there's anything else you wanted to know, you have questions, please pop them in the comments because we might be able to answer them for you or do
or ideas you might have. Cool. Jump on.
Awesome.
Yeah. Ramp it up.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for another episode. Thanks to our sponsor, Subtle Energy Sciences. Click the link in the show notes to access their full product range of quantum healing technology.
And thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. We're so grateful for your contribution to keep this podcast going.
If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can receive bonus full episodes, early release, and monthly readings and meditations.
We love to hear from you, so please comment on our YouTube channel or email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hearnhypnosis.com and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hearnhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxavier.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.